Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the oh-so-beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two fantastic guests today. First up, Bruce Hale will be here to celebrate the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club. And later in the show, Anne Marie Riley Guertin will be here to celebrate hide-and-seek monsters. Hey, my friends, we are really excited. Reading with Your Kids podcast is returning to the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, November 9th and 10th at the Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois. Let your imagination come to life at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair, the ultimate family play experience. Dive into hands-on fun with the hottest new toys and games, meet the inventors behind your favorite products, and even get a sneak peek at what will top holiday wish lists this year. From interactive play zones to exciting competitions and exclusive giveaways, there's something for every member of the family at the Chicago Toy and Game Fair. And don't miss the Young Inventor Challenge, where kids showcase their creativity and innovation. Who knows? You just might meet the next big inventor. Join us at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois, November 9th and 10th. Whether you're a game enthusiast or just looking for a fun weekend with the family, the Chicago Toy and Game Fair has it all. And like I said, the Reading with Your Kids podcast will be there, and you may have a chance to be heard on the show. Get your tickets today and bring the magic of play to life. Visit shytag.com for details, and be sure to use the discount code READ, R-E-A-D, at checkout to save on tickets. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Join us right now from the beautiful state of California. Our guest is here today to celebrate his illustrated chapter book, a series of chapter books. It's part of the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club series. We'll be talking today about Elvis is Missing and Grunthar's Revenge. Please welcome to Reading with Your Kids, Bruce Hale. Hey, Bruce, how are you?
I'm fabulous, Jed. How about you?
I'm fantastic. Bruce is looking so dapper with his fedora and looking like summer is continuing for you.
Yeah, it actually is. We're having a heat wave right now.
Oh, wow. We just got back from walking my daughter's dog, and we had a nice walk around the neighborhood. But you see, I have my hoodie on because it is a tad chilly here in Boston.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell us about the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club.
Well, it's a goofy idea, but I love goofy ideas. It's the premise of it is basically this brother and sister have a dog and a best friend, and they're all kind of hanging out watching TV, and the dog runs away, gets out the door. They chase it. the dog goes through this mysterious portal that leads to another world. And it's planet Kroon, where there are aliens who love Earth pizza. There are problems with gravity, like sometimes it's really heavy, sometimes it's really light. There's various bizarre monsters, and their whole mission is to find their dog and bring him back home.
Awesome. You know, chasing dogs that get away, it is dangerous. I chased my dog when I was, I think 10 or 11 years old. We were camping and I chased my dog into the woods. And when I finally caught up with her, I realized I am lost. I have no idea where to go. And I was lost on a mountain for about 12 hours.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And it's dangerous for the dogs, too. So that's why they're so dedicated to getting their dog back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what a neat idea. Where did this spring from? Did you have an adventure where you had to chase a dog?
Well, I've had a few adventures, not as an adult, but when I was a kid, same kind of thing as you. You know, we had a dog, Boris, who was a complete knucklehead. And if he saw an open door, he would make a break for it. And many's the time I chased him down the center strip and finally caught up with him and had to walk back all stooped over, holding onto his collar the whole way.
Yeah. I remember those things well.
Yeah.
So the two books in the series, are these the first two books in the series?
They are. I think Penguin wants to see how well these two books do and decide whether they want to do two more at that point. But you know, that's kind of common these days in the publishing industry. You know, don't have like out of the gate a 12-book series.
Right.
Know?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Elvis is Missing is probably a book that my beautiful wife would love because she is a huge Elvis fan.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm an Elvis fan myself. I actually portrayed a caricatured version of Elvis in a fundraising show a few years back. So I had to work on the moves and everything.
Yeah.
It's good fun.
Now, do we meet the real Elvis in this story, or are we meeting?
We do not. No, I just love the name, so it just felt like a good name for a dog.
Oh. And you could say when he runs out the door, Elvis has left the building. Exactly.
You know? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. I think my daughter has very big, very strong, muscular dog. He could probably get his voice sounding like that.
Yeah. I would not be surprised.
What is it about writing these silly, as you said, silly ideas that makes you so happy?
Well, I think one of my favorite things about writing is making people laugh. And so if I can write something that makes me crack up, then I usually know that that's a good test for whether it's going to make somebody else laugh. And so I don't really try to write Newbery winning, high quality books. The people I write for are non-readers in a hurry. So I want to show them how fun books can be by writing something that is funny, that has a lot of action, and grabs them from the beginning and pulls them into the story.
Yeah. I really respect that. I had somebody one time, we had an author on, and the title of their book included the word fart. And an author wrote to me and said, "Children deserve so much more." And it's like, okay, but you also want to help kids develop a love of reading. And the kids it sounds like the kids that you are going after are the kids who may get left by the wayside, the first and second graders, if they don't latch on and, really develop that love of reading. When they hit third grade and they're no longer learning to read, but they're having to read to learn, they're in big trouble if they haven't developed that love.
I agree. And that's why I try to write books that engage reluctant readers. The sentences are usually fairly short. It's punchy. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of humor. There's things that engage them in the story so that they can enjoy my books and then move on from there to other books. In fact, one of the best emails I ever got was from a high school kid who said, I really want to thank you because when I was in 5th grade, I hated reading. And the only thing I would read were the Chet Gecko mysteries. And if I hadn't read those, I wouldn't be reading Merchant of Venice and Of Mice and Men today. So I counted that as a real victory. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
Absolutely. Now, tell me where did this love of writing for reluctant readers, did this just come about out of a spirit of generosity and of, being a humanitarian, or was there something else that drove this?
Well, that's a lovely thought. I wish I was that noble. The truth is, it came about because I was a reluctant reader. When I was a kid, I thought books were boring. I would much rather run around and cause trouble. And that all ended on a very sad day that in my family we still call the day the TV died. And we have, you may be old enough to remember those great big black and white TVs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had one of those, and one day I was watching my favorite show, which I think at the time was probably Gilligan's Island or something highbrow like that. And all of a sudden the TV went like that, and the tube blew, and my parents said, sorry, we can't afford to buy a new tube or to buy a new TV right now, so we're going to have to read to you for entertainment. And I thought, I was going to have to commit suicide. I was like, no TV, what am I going to do? But sure enough, my parents tried a bunch of different books. And then when my dad started reading Tarzan to me, for some reason, that was the book that unlocked everything. I just said, oh my gosh, I've never heard as exciting a story as this. I want to know what happens next.
That's great. And boy, talk about bringing back memories. I'm wondering, did your dad have the same advanced remote control that my dad had, which was to give me a kick in the butt and tell me to change the channel?
Pretty much. Like, hey, get up, change the channel.
Yeah. And hold on to the antenna, lift your hand up.
You're right. Do this little thing here. Yeah. That was about the size of it.
Yeah. Boy, kids these days, they probably, if you mentioned the term TV repairman, they would probably look at you with, as if you were speaking in tongues. What in the world is a TV repairman? You throw the TV out, you get a new one.
Yeah, exactly. But that wasn't the case back then.
No.
It was a pretty substantial investment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I know initially my parents didn't have the money to get a new TV, but I suspect after about 6 months, they just continued that to see if my brother and I would get more engaged in reading.
Well, what great strategy. I wonder if they sabotaged the TV in the first place.
We'll never know.
Well, if they did, it was a great move, and I'm so happy for you and all the kids that are reading and loving your books that happened. The TV died one day, and you developed that love of reading. What do you think? Well, you answered it. The books you were reading were boring, and
yeah.
To be honest, a lot of books that we read back then, and probably a lot of books that kids read today, are boring.
It's true. And for me, that's the greatest sin. Like, if I'm picking up a book to read for fun, and I read the first chapter and I'm not engaged, I'll just put it aside. I have friends who will, once they've started it, they commit to finishing it, but I don't like reading boring books, and I know that kids don't like that either. So I try to avoid that cardinal sin whenever I write.
Yeah. I'm the same way, but I do most of my quote unquote reading with audiobooks these days, and I've returned so many. Amazon said, yeah, you're banned from returning books for a bit. So try.
Yep, I know what you mean. It either grabs you or it doesn't. Yeah.
And I think that's something that we need to appreciate as parents and caregivers, that the thing that maybe your first kid loves historical fiction, and that's great, but you have other kids and they're not connecting with it in the same way as you might have, or another one of your kids might have. And, that's why I'm so happy that we have this big surge in graphic novels and illustrated chapter books to really get those kids in so we don't leave anybody by the wayside.
Exactly. And, it's reading is reading, whether you're reading a graphic novel, a cereal box, or a literary novel, it's all reading. So we just need to get them engaged with the process and give them fun things to read, and they'll keep on reading.
Yeah. You just mentioned one of the things that I read a lot, which was the back of the cereal boxes.
Yes.
And my brothers and I used to fight over it. No, I want to read it for the 500th time.
Yeah, I know. It was like you'd be having breakfast and you just read the back of a Wheaties box,
Yep. And I don't know why I don't read. I should have all those cereal box backs memorized. I read them so many times.
I hear you.
But when you think back, I hopefully those books aren't around anymore. I shouldn't say that because they helped a lot of kids read, but, See Dick Run, the Dick and Jane series.
Yes.
Wow. Talk about a snoozer.
Yes. I mean, yes, it was really basic and it helped the kids learn to read, but couldn't you have some fun in the meantime?
Right.
And that was the revolution when Dr. Seuss came in and he's like, okay, I can use a very minimal amount of words, but I can make this thing fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it did.
Yeah. Do you find it challenging to write stories in a more concise manner, not having as many words as an adult writing an adult novel has to tell a story?
Not always. Sometimes it takes me a while to shift gears, but I write everything from picture books to I can read books to novels. So I'm always having to recalibrate my writing level. And my general preference is to write kind of more of a Hemingway style, if I can say that, just kind of more terse and pared down rather than going on and on and on about the color of the clouds or, what the house looks like, that sort of thing.
Yeah. There are a lot of books. I read that and I'm going through and the clouds of this and the wallpaper is that. And I'm like, I don't really need to know that. I want to know where the spy went.
Exactly. It's like, where is he hiding? That's what I want to know. I don't want to know if it was the grandmother's pattern of the wallpaper and, like some writers go into it's a little too much detail.
Right. And there are some readers who love that and that's great.
Sure.
But, there are a lot of us who don't.
Yeah. And especially if you're talking reluctant readers,
right.
Anything that gets in the way of their engaging with the story, like, having a lot of backstory in the beginning or something like that is something you need to rework because it'll block them from getting into the book.
Yeah. One thing I've heard a comedian, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld, say, that he develops his set so that there's a joke every 15 or 20 or 30 seconds. Is that something you're thinking about? Oh, I have to have a gag. I need my kids, my readers to laugh at every paragraph or every third paragraph.
Not as specifically as that, but I do make a conscious effort to make sure that every chapter's got some funny exchanges in it. And also that there is kind of a sense of heart underneath it. So these characters may be a little goofy, but they want something very seriously and they're depressed or they're sad or angry or whatever when they can't get it. So I think even in a real simple book like this, if you have a little bit of an emotional underpinning, it's a more satisfying read.
Yeah.
So I always try to balance that, have some humor and have some heart at the same time.
So when did this reluctant reader decide that he was going to spend his life writing books?
Well, there's two answers to that question. The first is in the fourth grade.
Okay.
My best friend at the time told me that when I was in fourth grade, I told him, I'm going to be a children's book author when I grow up. And by the time I got to be a teenager and hormones were at work on me, I completely forgot about that. And I was more interested in girls, and I'm also a cartoonist, so I kind of envisioned for myself a career as a cartoonist. But then, through strange turns of fate, I ended up over in Japan and I was doing a writing job for an ad agency. And I had never really trained as a writer, but because I'm such a reader, that ability came out in me. And I'm like, hey, I can actually write.
Yeah.
Huh. And so then I did journalism for a bit, and I thought, gosh, this is kind of boring. I want to do something where I can make stuff up. And I'm not restrained by the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when that idea of being a children's book author came back to me. And I said, oh, yeah, I remember wanting to do that when I was a kid. And I wrote several really terrible children's books while I was trying to figure it out. I mean, just awful. I sent it around and like 50 publishers rejected it. And I was all bent out of shape. And then about 6 years later, I reread it and I'm like, oh, I see why they rejected it. So, yeah, it was a long process. It took me about 8.5 years to get published from when I decided that I really wanted to get published.
Yeah. That must have been a fascinating time in life, going over to Japan to write, to work in advertising. How did that happen?
Well, it happened because I have a terrible sense of direction. A friend and I were going to go to Texas to go work on the oil rigs. And that was our big plan. And so we're going to earn all this money, and then we'd go live someplace artistic like New Orleans. And he was going to write the great American novel, and I thought I was going to do a brilliant cartoon strip like Calvin and Hobbes. And instead, we ran into this company in Bryce Canyon. They were doing some work there, and they did oil exploration. They would plant these magnetic coils in the ground and see what was under the surface, whether it was geothermal or petroleum or whatever. And the guy had 2 spots on his crew. And my friend and I said, well, oil exploration, oil rigs, what the heck, we'll go. And so we worked for them for a few months. And then there was a call to send a team to Japan and another team to Brazil. And we both liked sushi. So we said, let's go to Japan. And, we did the job for a while there. And then once we were finished, we had just fallen in love with the place after about 2-3 months. And so we kept our return tickets, taught English for a while, and then worked from there into jobs that were more suited for us.
Wow. What an adventure. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was very eye-opening. I was in my early, mid-20s and had never lived outside of the U.S. before. So it was a fabulous experience.
Yeah. There are a lot of people out there that they're probably getting the heebie-jeebies thinking about, I'm 20 and I'm in another country and I'm kind of almost by myself and I could never do that.
Yeah. Well, it helped me that I had a friend there.
Yeah.
So we kind of like started with that little circle, and then we just made more and more friends over the time we were there.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, it is challenging, but it's great to shake your life up every now and then and do something new.
Yeah. I'm curious, have any of your books been translated into Japanese?
Not into Japanese. My Clark the Shark books have been translated into French and Spanish.
Okay. All right.
But I use a lot of wordplay. I use bad puns and jokes, and those don't always translate into foreign languages that well.
Right.
Yeah. So, so like the wordplay in the Chet Gecko books, it doesn't translate to Japanese so well, and the attitudes and stuff.
Yeah. I had a niece. I introduced my kids to Monty Python and the Holy Grail when they're in 3rd grade, and they absolutely loved it. And my niece, who I adore, English is not her first language. And I thought, I'm going to sit down and watch Monty Python and Holy Grail with her. And I think she was 12 or 13, and she didn't get it at all. Yeah,
I know. Humor does not always translate through different languages.
Yeah. So we're finding out if the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club is going to take off, and I'm sure it will. It sounds like a really fun series, so I'm sure we'll be getting more of those. But in the meantime, is there another project that you're working on that you can give us a sneak peek about?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, I love to draw. I'm a cartoonist as well as a writer. And I realized that I had written a bunch of books recently, over the last maybe 5, 6 years that other people illustrated. And so I said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to assign myself an illustration project. So I'm working on an illustrated novel right now. It's all animal characters because I love to draw animals. And it's called the Troublemakers Club.
Ooh.
And it's about these kids who they're a little bored. They're not really challenged. And they decide, well, let's be troublemakers. We'll form a club and make some good trouble around our school. So they do things like, if a teacher is particularly mean, they may play a practical joke. In this particular book, they've discovered that somebody is trying to replace their teachers with AI robots. And so they have to, solve that mystery and make some trouble there to restore the school.
Oh, that sounds really neat. Will you have an open invitation to come back on the show to celebrate those books when they're out there in the world?
Well, thank you, Jed. I would love to.
In the meantime, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club.
All righty. Well, you can always go to my website, brucehale.com. And Hale is spelled Hale. I've got a write-up on them with links to buy the books. Or you can go to Penguin. Penguin Workshop is the publisher, and just search for the title there. The books will be in bookstores on October 15th, and I am looking forward to it.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club. The first 2 books in the series are Elvis is Missing and Grunthar's Revenge. They are illustrated chapter books from our guest, Bruce Hale. Bruce, thanks so much for being with us.
It's my pleasure, Jed.
Hey, my friend, Jed Lee here. We all know that for kids to develop a lifelong passion for reading, they need to get engaged with books that spark their imaginations and interest. Wouldn't it be great if they also get interested in history and geography at the same time? That's where the great fantasy book series that kids simply can't put down, The Adventures of Jimmy and Andrew, come in. A 9-year-old boy and his 3,300-year-old telepathic dog, who is rescued from the shelter, set off for adventures around the world with Jimmy's archaeologist parents. The first book in the series, American Stonehenge, has more than 300 positive reviews. To learn more, please visit jimmyandandrew.com. That's jimmyandandrew.com. Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Join us from right outside of Boston. Our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate 3 brand new books. We're going to start by talking about her Hide and Seek Monsters book. Please welcome back to the show, Anne Marie Riley Guertin. Anne Marie, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jed. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. It's great to have you back on the podcast. You have celebrated, I think, 2 or 3 books here on the show in the past.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And it's always great to have a neighbor on the podcast.
Sure is.
Yeah. So tell us all about Hide and Seek Monsters, please.
Oh, sure. So this book just released last week from Familius. It is a rhyming book that has sort of a Halloween theme, but it's more about monsters so that it can be read year round. It's a neat little rhyming book that has some lift the flap features for the little kids for, their finger dexterity, and it just keeps them engaged. So it's a super cute book that was illustrated by Hannah Wood.
Why do you think kids, even young kids, love monsters?
That's a great question. I think it's, part of the fantasy. There's lots of children's movies about monsters. Monsters Inc., that seems to be a big one. And I think Halloween is an exciting time for kids and dress up in costumes. So I think the appeal for monsters and little kids is just something that continues to be a big thing. And year after year, we see lots of books about monsters coming out. So
Did you, when you started writing hide and seek monsters, was it you were consciously thinking, oh, kids love monsters, I got to write a monster book? Or was it more you had this idea and it just happened to fall into that genre?
I think it was a little bit of both. I'm a Halloween lover, so I crafted this book around Halloween time when I was thinking about, okay, what else is not out in the market? What would be fun to write about? I teach preschool in addition to teaching high school, so I know what kinds of books the little kids really love. So when I started crafting this, it was just around Halloween time. I thought it'd be a fun little story. I never intended it to be rhyme. It just happened to kind of fall into place when I started writing, and then I was like, oh, I think I can make this a rhyming book. So that's exactly what I did. But I think the illustrations on this book really make it super appealing and really fun for kids. So I know that they're going to have a blast reading it this fall.
Yeah. So you are a preschool teacher and a high school teacher. How does that work? It's like, teaching in two different countries almost.
It is. So I am a shop teacher at a technical school. And so my program is the early childhood program where I am training high school students how to become preschool and daycare teachers in the future. So luckily for me, I teach them, the high school components about brain development and early childhood development. And then right next door, we have a preschool room where my students then go in and create activities and teach the young kids, where I oversee that as well.
When you said you were a shop teacher, I thought you were there cutting the wood and making the bird houses that I did with my shop teacher, who was missing 2 or 3 fingers, as I recall.
Yeah. So there's 21 different shops at my school, from aviation to early childhood to robotics to culinary. So we have a little bit of everything.
I love the fact that it seems as if technical schools are making a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea why they kind of went away. Who in the world woke up one morning and said, okay, everybody has to go to college. Education's a great thing. It's not, higher education is not for everybody. And I think the only thing that happened when they kind of made that pronouncement, everybody has to go to college. The only thing that happened is college tuition went through the roof, and now there are kids getting out of college that they're owing $100,000, $200,000, and they can't find a job.
I know. Trade school is where it is at. I have 2 high school students. Both of my children are in a technical school learning a trade. We've had nothing but positive experiences. I teach in one, so I'm all about it. I see the wonderful things that we're teaching these kids. They're going out, they have a skill set, whereas, I'm not knocking regular high school, but, they don't have the same experiences. So these kids are learning a hands-on skill and trade along with the academic piece. I feel like it rounds them up really well. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And I don't see AI. We had the plumbers over to snake out our drain this morning. I don't see AI doing that anytime soon.
No, the same with, making your food or caring for your children or any of those things. So.
Right. Yeah. So you were mentioning you had 3 books come out this summer. What a fantastic thing, and very unusual too.
Very, I know. It wasn't exactly planned this way. One of my books got delayed a little bit because of the whole COVID thing happening and things getting pushed down the line with publications. But it's very exciting. So I had one release in June, one release in July, and then one in August, all with the same publisher. So all of my books are with Familius. I've been with them since the very beginning. They published my first book. And I'm just super thrilled that they loved 3 of my stories enough to continue working with me.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned all of your books. Is it all the books that you've had published have been through Familius?
No, so I've also published with Simon & Schuster, and I have also published with Bushel and Peck Books, but 6 out of my 8 books are with Familius.
We love the folks over at Familius. I think the first couple of years of reading with your kids, I guess that 25% of our guests came from Familius. We've had the publisher on, the publicist at the time, an art director, and I really learned a lot about the children's book industry through those folks and through working with people over at Familius. So big tip of the hat to them.
Mm-hmm. They're great.
Yeah. You mentioned that. So Hide and Seek Monsters was a book that came out in August. You mentioned you also had a book come out in July. Which book was that?
I did. So in July, we released 1, 2, 3 Counting on Community. It's another board book. It's about stewardship, teaching children to take initiative. So the background behind this book, I was looking for something where children and adults together can come together to better the community. So there's a, dilapidated park, and the children and the families that live in and around that park come together, clean it up. They create compost piles, garden beds. They fix up all the equipment together. And it's just a nice, beautiful book about, older people and younger people coming together to make the world a little bit better for everyone.
Well, we certainly support intergenerational relationships and friendships. I think it's so important. It was so important in my life. My relationship with my grandparents was wonderful. I've mentioned on the podcast, my grandmother was one of my best friends. We would go to the WWF together at Boston Garden. She'd ride in the back of my motorcycle. It was, she was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great book. And that was illustrated by Corey Reed. Again, another wonderful, set of illustrations, bright and colorful. And he did an amazing job on that.
Yeah. Has it become easy for you to just hand your manuscript off to an illustrator or an art director and say, okay, hands off from me. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with?
Yeah, absolutely, because I've had nothing but positive experiences working with Familius and Simon & Schuster and Bushel and Peck. And, you create an idea in your head as you're writing the story, but then when you see it come out through someone else's eyes, their art is just so much better than what you pictured in your own head. So they do the things that I couldn't. So I've been very happy and very lucky all around.
Yeah. It sounds like this book, in addition to inspiring intergenerational friendships, empowers kids with the knowledge that they can make a difference in the world.
Yeah, that was part of my, my thinking. I work with young children, as you know, and yes, they have little bodies, but they're able to do amazing things if we give them opportunity. So I was trying to think of a way to kind of, showcase, like, they may be little, but they can help just as much as a bigger person. Right. They just need the opportunity to do so. So that was part of my thinking and when I was creating that book.
Now, I for 7 years here on the podcast, one of the things that I've been saying and advocating for is asking, when you're sitting down and asking, talking about a book and asking a child what do they think about it, I've said that I thought that that's a really empowering thing to do. When the person that is most important in a child's life says to them, what do you think? I think it's really empowering, but I'm just a dope, so I don't know. So you're an expert, so why don't you tell, am I right? Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. You're reading to them, but they're gaining world experience, at such a young age. And if we allow them these opportunities and we ask them these questions and we get them thinking like that, you'd be really surprised. Yes, they're only 3, 4, and 5, but they also have big ideas and big thoughts. And when you're asking them to share those things, you might be a little bit surprised with what they come out with.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things, too, that I say is if you ask your kid their opinion, they might not have the same opinion as you, but when you ask your kid their opinion, whatever they say is right. You're going to have a conversation about why you think that way and how you think a different way and share that. But you can't tell your kid that their opinion is wrong. It's their opinion, and you ask for it.
Yep, that's right. I agree with you on that one.
So we had a kindergarten teacher on not too long ago, Zeba McGibbon, another Massachusetts resident, and she was saying one of the frustrating things that she's experiencing is that kindergarten, there's so much pressure on kindergartners and on kindergarten teachers to have every moment of the day structured, and the time for free play that's so important in a young kid's life is really almost non-existent these days. Is that something that you're also experiencing with the younger students?
I think no. I used to teach kindergarten not too long ago, maybe 10 years back. No, I think there is a definite difference between preschool and kindergarten. Kindergarten is part of the public school system now, where those kids are getting ready for MCAS. And unfortunately, we have to train them in reading and writing. And so basically, over the years, from what I've seen, and I've been in this business 24 years, kindergarten became first grade not too long ago. And first grade became second grade, and so we're just pushing it down the line. Preschool's a little bit different. They definitely have more of an opportunity to be kids and play. A big chunk of their day is doing that. But then I've also seen when they transition from preschool to kindergarten, they have a breakdown because they've gone from fun and playing to academic all day with a 20-minute recess. So it's unfortunate. And I thought maybe the pendulum would swing back to our theorists and all the people who created the foundation of early childhood, that it would kind of come back and that we would see play as important. They're learning language skills, they're learning negotiation skills, they're learning a lot of different things through play, but we're shortening that amount of time and focusing more on the book work. But yeah, I thought that was going to change. Hopefully in the near future, we kind of come back to our roots, but I'm not seeing that anytime soon, especially with all the standardized testing that our students in Massachusetts have to do.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to take just a minute to talk about standardized testing. And here in Massachusetts, we'll be voting on a referendum, unless they took it off the ballot. But I believe we're voting on whether or not we're going to keep the MCAS test requirement for high school graduation. Where do you stand on that as a professional educator?
And I teach high school again, so now I'm on this other end of the spectrum. Not everyone is a test taker. They're just not. That does not show that they have mastered the skill set, that they have applied the skill. People have test anxiety. You have students with special needs, and you're asking everybody, whether you have special needs, whether you have anxiety, whether you're just a quote-unquote typical student, to take the same test and measure the same progress for everybody. So a big part of school is differentiating instruction. This group of kids needs this. This group of kids needs this. This one needs a small group. And as teachers, we do that, and then we give them one standardized test that's supposed to fit all. So we went to high school. We did not have to take any sort of exam to graduate, and we are all successful. So I do not think one test can measure the success. Do I think there should be assessments to make sure we're teaching what we need to? Yes. Do I think that graduation requirements should be, pinned on this one exam that they have to take? Absolutely not. So no, I don't agree. Me and probably every educator who is in this boat, do not agree with this test taking. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping it's on the ballot.
To play devil's advocate, we had Malcolm Mitchell, one of our beloved Patriots who won a Super Bowl. He came on. He is now a children's author and literacy advocate. But he was one of those folks who was pushed through the system. And he discovered when he arrived at college that he wasn't able to read. Mm-hmm. And there are lots of people for various reasons who have that experience. What would you say to a person that's listening that says, oh yeah, Malcolm Mitchell was on the podcast and he couldn't read, and how did that happen? How did that, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen to another kid?
We just got to make sure that the interventions that we have in place are in place, and we're targeting kids a lot earlier and paying attention and taking notes and having those meetings with families. Families, they're a key component to education as well. So, right, we're having these conversations with parents. We're looking at different pieces and parts that we can put in place to make those accommodations for those kids. But I mean, I'm assuming maybe, I'm not sure how old he is, but if he got to the MCAS, right, he would have trouble with that. And then what would they do to help him to pass that test? So we're kind of still in that same boat, I think.
Yeah.
You know, they have all of these pieces in place. If you don't pass the MCAS, there's like a summer thing that you have to do. I mean, we can still make those interventions. I think for kids, I can speak for myself. I was on top of that kind of thing with having parents in before report card, not waiting until that time to have those conversations. If I knew something was, or a kid was struggling, I made sure that I got that ball rolling pretty quickly. So we need to keep the interventionists. They're cutting them out. They're cutting out the reading specialists, the math specialists because of budgets, but we really need those people. They're crucial in making sure that kids are getting the services that they need.
You know, it's one of the things that's interesting here, just going back to the MCAS, is that it's not required for kids going to private school.
Correct. That's true.
So if it's important, it's important. And if one group can be exempt from it, then we have to take a look at that.
Yeah. And not everyone will agree with us, but I'm just, from my perspective, having taught kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fourth grade, high school, I just don't think one size fits all, especially where we work so hard to make accommodations for kids and differentiate instruction. So.
Well, I think my beautiful wife would agree with you. You know, one of the things that was frustrating for her was just how little creativity she was able to use in her classroom. And I just returned from an a conference for educators and educational leaders down in Nashville, and I was horrified to hear that in some school districts, teachers actually have a script.
Yes.
That they have to follow. And I mean, I'm on stage doing shows, I'm doing podcasts. I don't use a script for anything, and I can't imagine standing in front of a classroom of kids with a script and needing to stick to that script.
And reading literally right out of the book in bold, it will tell you exactly what you need to say and how you say it. It's wild.
And on the other side of that, I can't imagine, well, no, I can't imagine what it's like to be a student, because I had a college professor who basically read his book, sat at the front of the class and read the book, and I got absolutely nothing from that class.
Yeah, you don't. I couldn't teach like that. Luckily, I don't have to.
Yeah. Well, you had a third book come out earlier in the summer. What was that book?
So that one is called Finding Mr. Trunks, and it actually won the Pencraft Award. So I just won an award on that. It's up for another award that I should hear about on September 1st. So I'm very excited about this one. This is a picture book. So my other two were board books. So this one falls in a little bit of a different genre and category. But this was based on a story that I had with my own child. So the background to this story is a little girl loses her stuffed elephant at the airport on their way to a family trip. And how many times have we seen that story, right, on Twitter or on Instagram? Lost stuffed animal, please help us find it. And so this actually happened to my son, so that was sort of the catalyst for this. But she drops her stuffed animal. He's picked up by a little baby, and they travel to Italy, and then they use the power of social media by looking at his tag and figuring out he's lost, to find his way back to his original family.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Very neat. And boy, that is traumatic.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you're at the airport, you lose and you can't, we have to find this. No, you got to get on the plane.
Yep. And you know that those kids know exactly that stuffed animal, that little spot that's rubbed off and missing fur or an eyeball. So it's really hard to trick them with a quote unquote new one that looks the same. You know, they're not dumb.
Yeah. That's, again, as a preschool teacher, as an expert, why do some kids get so attached to a stuffed animal or a blanket or some type of, they always seem to be soft?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the texture and the softness or the smell or what it is, but yeah, my son was addicted to a stuffed animal. He still has it. We lost it. We never found it. got a replacement, didn't work, but then he learned to love that one. And my daughter with a blanket. So yeah, we see this a lot.
Yeah. Is it, so it sounds like your son still has his, replacement stuffed animal.
Replacement one, yes.
So is it, do we need to worry about it if a kid gets to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years old and they still want to go to bed with their stuffed animal?
Oh, I think it's a comfort thing. I mean, my son's is packed up in the attic and has been for a really long time, but it was something I couldn't get rid of because it was something that was so meaningful to him when he was really little.
Yeah.
And if he wants to have that to pass on to his own kids or tell stories about his stuffed animal from when he was really little, it's just a part of childhood. I feel like almost everybody has a lovey or a stuffy or a blanket or a pacifier for some. There's just some sort of attachment. Maybe it's a control thing where they have control over this thing. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. But I feel like almost every kid, even all my preschoolers, have something. They take it from home. Maybe at nap time, it reminds them of being home. It's a comfort thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my beautiful wife still has her childhood stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And, so yes. Hey, Anne Marie, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and all the great books that you are sharing with the world.
Sure. They can visit my website. It's just my name, AnneMarieRileyGuertin.com. I'm on Twitter at @ARileyGuertin. So that's where they can find me.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Hide and Seek Monsters and many other books. Our guest has been Anne Marie Riley Guertin. Anne Marie, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, if you have a minute and you love reading with your kids, you want to help us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading, it would really be helpful if you left a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or iHeartRadio or wherever you find your podcasts. We'd also love it if you could connect with us on social media, Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JedleyMagic on X. We have a great YouTube channel. Earlier in the show, you heard us talking about our Drawing with Your Kids and STEM is Family Fun projects. You can find all of those videos on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, we'd love for you to visit our website. There's so much on our website. It's www.readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, read all of our full reviews of all of the wonderful books that have been named Certified Great Reads. You can also use a contact button located at the top of the page to send us a message. Let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. You can also let us know what you love about the show and what we could be doing better. And if you're an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of readingwithyourkids.com to find out how you can be a guest. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlet fans all about your great children's book. You can also learn about our very effective and very affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we start by thanking our guest, Bruce Hale. Be sure to check out the Outer Space Mystery Pizza Club and Anne Marie Riley Guertin. Check out Hide and Seek Monsters and all of her other wonderful books. I want to thank members of my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Raylene Tang. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
show.